YouTubers, and welcome to the February 2024 Mixed Box Monthly. We finally made a return down to the clubhouse after a few videos away. In fact, I haven't been down here much at all. It's full of dead wood lice. I have to use wood lice killer to seal the doors and stuff because they get in and live in here. Now they're getting in and dying in here. So yes, got to have a hoover up in here. It's a bit cold, a bit damp, but oh well, we're back. Yes, the last time I was in here was Christmas Eve, and the fall of Madonna got me into trouble. Yes, YouTube decided to restrict my videos because of inappropriate content. So yes, hopefully she won't restrict viewing today, but we shall see. So yes, in January I stated that we were going to have Track Brewery this month. However, I have had to change my plans, mainly because Track wanted to charge me £36 for 5 cans of beer. I mean, admittedly they were double and triple IPAs, but that still works out about, you know, £8-9 a can, and I thought that was fairly unreasonable. And the fact that I'm still recovering after forking out a shitload of money for my car, I went for something a bit cheaper. So I went onto Google, typed in UK breweries, scrolled through, and the one which piqued my attention was these fellows. I just really like the artwork, these sort of line graph ink drawings, and it is Brimstage Brewery. So they are based on the Wirral, and I shall read you the bump. Brimstage Brewery Company Limited started operations back in 2006 with the aim of creating the ultimate session ales for some of the most discerning local drinkers in the UK. Rooted in a community with a rich history and full of local character, founder Neil Young aimed to craft a range of beers that would consistently refresh and satisfy the toughest of crowds. We are proud of the beers and what we've achieved, but our mission remains the same: to brew the perfect pint for our customers. We're a small team passionate about brewing beer with real character. We've been finalists in CAMRA's Champion Beer of Britain competition 3 times, reflecting the efforts of a team completely focused on hitting the spot with each brew. Brimstage has benefited from some really dedicated and still skilled staff, with Chris, Mark, Sue, Paul and brilliant head brewer Tom now running the show. Apologies for the constant trains. It's 6 o'clock, peak rush hour on the West Coast Main Line. Sorry, I might as well read this. Handcrafted quality beer means taking time and working with the best ingredients possible. We use British Marisotto malt and whole cone hops to create distinctive flavours. We blend this with experienced brewers who ensure their hard-earned know how goes into every brew. We've formed strong working relationships with the best hop and malt merchants in the business to ensure our ingredients are picked from the top producers around the world. Our brewing equipment was made to our specification by the manufacturers who produce equipment for a Bollinger champagne. We don't cut corners and never will, winning 19 regional and national awards to date in cask and bottle and beer festivals from Bridge House to Banbury. The team's considerable efforts haven't gone unnoticed. There we go. And you can see, I'm not sure how well you can see that, but it's some lovely artwork there. That's their range. I really like that sort of line work. But yes, from Home Farm Brimstage in the Wirral. So I'll crack on with the first beer, which is what is it? Trapper's Hat, 3.8%. Lovely pale ale. A true session ale, refreshingly hoppy with hints of orange and grapefruit. Trapper's Hat will bring you back for more and more. And I did look up the ingredients. It was Marisotto and Seri something. Let's have a look. Savinsky Goldings, which is new to me. And this is one Sieber Bronze in 2014. And then 3 CAMRA awards. I can't quite see the years, but there we go. So it's award-winning ale. Trapper's Hat 3.8. So lovely clear colour. Oh yes. Mm. Well, that's very good. No, that's beautifully smooth, wet and refreshing. Um, you sort of know, when you get a crisp, dry lager. Well, this is the opposite. This is a nice, wet, refreshing ale. Lubricates the vocal cords, as you were. A nice, good sort of rounded, biscuity malt base. Lovely sort of traditional hop aroma. And yeah, I can taste that grapefruit that they mentioned. What else do they say? Hints of orange. Mm. Yeah, there's a good bit of fruity citrusness in there. That is super smooth to drink. In fact, I'm going to finish that incredibly quickly. Yeah, you could drink several pints of this and be very happy. There's enough flavour in there to keep it interesting, but it's just a smooth session beer. You know, it's not like an IPA or a modern hoppy pale. It's a subdued hoppiness, but it just works perfectly in the style of ale. It's just really relaxing to drink, but there's enough flavour in there to keep it interesting. That nice sort of citrusy note. It's not too bitter either. There is a good bit of bitterness to counterbalance that sort of fruity hoppiness and the maltiness, but it's just a really well balanced beer. Incredibly sessionable as well. First beer is a bloody good one. Moving swiftly on, we have Sandpiper, which is their light session ale. Again, lovely artwork there. Don't let the low strength fool you. Sandpiper is bursting with refreshing tropical citrus flavours, making it an award-winning light session ale. Citra. Can't go wrong with Citra. So here we go. It was again lovely colour and clarity. You can definitely smell Citra on the nose. It's nice. I suppose it's like Oakham Citra, but not quite as much, like a light version. Oakham Citra Light sort of thing. It's got a lovely malty base, a good amount of Citra flavour, but it's just very sort of toned back. It doesn't have that same bitterness. It's a little bit lighter in the mouth. Yeah, it's nice, refreshing. Just doesn't quite have the impact that Citra usually has. There's still very pleasant, fruity, slightly pithy, bitter Citra notes. And again, quite a nice little sweet malt base. For 3.6 beer, it's light, it's refreshing. Perhaps in the summer you could, with a bit more chilled, you could probably knock that back very easily. Yes, no, it's perfectly acceptable. Light Citra style ale. Next up we have Rhode Island Red, which is an American red ale at 4%. Lovely little rooster there, looking eagerly and with much thirst and excitement and anxiety and other adjectives in his eyes into his glass. Hopped with Mount Hood hops, which is one I haven't really come across much. I'm sure I've had beers with Mount Hood in before, but not a very familiar hop. With a hint of spice from the rye and richness from the red crystal malt, Rhode Island Red is a deeply satisfying ale. Yes, I do like the little rooster on there as well. So I love these sort of line drawings of theirs. They're very nice. They're very pleasant. Which is why I brought their beers. So if Brimstage ever watch this video, your artwork is the reason why I purchased your beers. Anyway, there we go. More of an amber than a red, admittedly, but there are sort of reddish notes in there, I suppose. Interesting nose to it. No, it's diving. That's quite nice, that. It's got a nice sort of like a caramel maltiness to it. I assume that's coming from the red crystal malt, and you can taste the rye, but the rye isn't too overpowering. I find with rye malt sometimes it can be a bit too hefty, and I'm not overly keen on rye to be truth be told. But this is just nice. You can know it's there, but it's not the main aspect of the beer. You know, they balance the malts well here, and they've got a good amount of crystal, giving that sort of nice sweetness to it, and then that rye is giving that slight complex flavour, that sort of spiciness. There's a good bit of toasted malt in there as well. Hop wise, what am I getting from the hops? Does the bottle give any advice? It has got some hoppiness to it, but struggling to define it at the moment. Quite earthy, perhaps. And a good amount of bitterness to balance the sweet maltiness. Slightly spicy as well. That might be a combination of the rye and the hop, perhaps. That's pretty pleasant, that. Again, it's a very, very smooth beer. That seems to be a trait I'm noticing in their beers so far, is that they're very smooth and very, very well balanced. You know, that they're not over sweet, they're not too bitter, and they balance well. Impressive. Most impressive. But you're not a Jedi yet. On to Scarecrow now, which is their multi-award-winning 4.2% amber ale. Lovely little picture of Mr. Scarecrow Man with a crow drinking his beer. He's obviously not doing a very good job of scaring crows and needs to be fired. And if you're wondering why I've got half a pint, it's because I started waffling onto the camera without pressing record. I've obviously had too much to drink. Well, I haven't really, but I have. We're descending into trouble. Let's read the bump again. Multi-award-winning Scarecrow continues to wow drinkers with its fruity aroma and full body to deliver a perfectly balanced amber bitter. So this is hopped with Cascade. Cascade, a hop of which I brewed with for the first time last year and was very impressed. So I will repeat what I said a moment ago to no one because I hadn't hit record. Let's drink again. Oh wow! No, no, it's got a really nice, uh, slightly sweet, slightly toasted, malty background to it, and then you go on to a nice fruitiness, lots of sort of fruity citrus notes to it, and a good sort of pithy orange bitterness as well. Again, really smooth, really well balanced. You know, the bitterness does sort of counteract with the fruitiness of the hop very nicely, and yes, it's very enjoyable. I still think the Trapper's Hat is my favourite of the ones I've had so far. But again, this is a perfectly tasty, acceptable beer. You know, very, very refreshing, very well balanced. On to Oyster Catcher, which is very clearly a stout, as black as you like there. It's a 4.4% oatmeal stout, hopped with Williamette. Smooth and rich with chocolate and coffee aromas, Oyster Catcher Oatmeal Stout will remind you of sitting by a log fire in your favourite, pardon me, local pub. This is my favourite local pub. Might as well chicken the dregs. Now, admittedly, I've had this before, so if you remember at the start of the video I said I had 11 different beers. Well, it's a box of 12, so I had to have one duplicate. So I decided to have 2 stouts because I like stout. So I've had this before. But there we go. So, Oyster Stout, 4.4%. As you can see, it is really black. I see a slight reddish hue. Well, I can see a slight reddish hue, you can't. Lovely sort of beige, creamy head. Let's dive in. Chin chin. That is a proper heavy hitter of a stout. This is how stout should be. Not all those overly sweet, artificial tasting things you get nowadays. This is a proper real man stout. Oh dear. We are descending into nonsense. This will be the last one of this small session though. Very, very heavy on the roasted malt, the coffee flavours you get from roasted malt. Very heavy on that. And you get that associated bitterness with the roasted malt and the coffee flavours. So lots of roasted malt. Then you do pick up a hint of that creamy oatmeal flavour as well. That's there, it sort of smooths out that sort of slightly more astringent roasted malt flavour. And then you do get a hint of dark chocolate in the background as well. Quite a bit of finish though. Quite a bit of finish. It's a stout which errs on the slightly more bitter side of stouts. You know, there's a nice sort of, as I describe it, a dark chocolate sweetness there. And part of that oatmeal maltiness is slightly sweet as well. So that does help to counterbalance the very strong roasted malt coffee flavours. But it is the bitter stout. You know, it's perfectly acceptable for it. It's very tasty. A lot of flavour in there. It's got a good mouthfeel as well. I wouldn't say it's a thick stout, but it isn't noticeably thin either. It's just, you know, it's just right, really. But yes, I'm very impressed with that. The bitterness, It could be toned down a little bit just to make it a little bit smoother, but I think you'd lose something of the beer if you did that. A bit of black treacle in the background as well, by the way. So yes, it is a very complex stout. It's very hearty, very full on, very tasty. So we're back in the house to have a look at the lager, only because the lager was in the fridge up in the house. 4.5% Hallertau hops. A cool, crisp lager with German hops and a subtle bitterness to refresh your palate. You'll be right at home drinking it with seafood pasta or washing down burger straight from the barbecue. Sadly, I have neither, but there we go. Yeah, it's quite a nice, funky can. I'll say the mixed box was actually a mix of cans and bottles. So this is the first can we're looking at. So different artwork to the bottles, a bit more abstract perhaps than the bottles that we've seen before. Beer is a lovely light amber colour. It's a very good lager glass this, because it's nucleated and it holds a 440 can perfectly, which is what this is. Pinch from Wetherspoons, the glass. Chin chin. Unusual that for a lager. It is unusual. So you've got a bit of slightly honey-like maltiness to it, and then a really earthy bitter hoppiness. It very randomly reminds me of whiskey. I don't quite know why, but that's sort of the sort of flavours I'm picking up randomly. Perhaps it's that maltiness. Quite earthy flavours. Seems to be giving me illusions of whiskey. Perhaps a little bit too bitter, I think, for a lager. It's certainly very flavoursome. So there's a lot going on there. Some nice, really sweet malt notes, and a very interesting hoppiness. Very interesting hoppiness. It's yeah, it's got lots of sort of floral earth. Certainly earthy is the word which I'm finding best to describe it. It's got quite a sort of a vegetation-y sort of hoppiness right at the background, it's got lots of flavour, but it's probably not as relaxing and easy to drink as other lagers I've had. But it's not to say it's not an enjoyable beer. It's just a very unusual bitter lager. Still pleasant enough. A Brimstage IPA up next. It is a 6% beer, hopped with Chinook and Mount Hood. Again, lovely artwork there. A Bengal tiger and a rabbit, and there's also a little map there with a sort of voyage of some description on it. There we go. Very nice artwork again. Chinook, Mount Hood, I think I've already mentioned that, but IPAs were first brewed with added strength and hops to survive the long voyage to India. Ours was produced to mark the journey to our 1000th brew. There we go. Very nice too. a bit cold. The temperature overnight has been 0, -1, -2, so beers in kept down the clubhouse have been quite cold. I have put the fan heater on just to try and get a bit of warmth in here, as it's rather nippy. Nice sunny day today, but really windy, as you can probably see from the leaves outside. Very cold wind, so yeah, so it's cold beer is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, roundabout. Oh, because I'm down the clubhouse, you'll hear trains. Very pale, very clear. You can see me through the beer, look. Hello. Okay. Very dank and bitter. And a good amount of citrusiness as well. It's more of an old-fashioned style IPA in terms of the bittering levels, you know, and a lack of haziness. Not an old-fashioned, but IPAs, how they used to be made. So a good sort of biscuity, malty base, I'd say. Perhaps not biscuity, but certainly a malty base. And like grapefruit, citrus, orange, pithy notes. You know, they're quite a sort of dank bitterness. Hints of piney resin bitterness, I suppose, on the back end, but certainly a lot of pithy citrus notes as well. It's very pleasant, very smooth drink. The sweetness of the citrusy, fruity notes sort of counterbalances that bitterness at the end as well. Initially I thought it was too bitter, but after the initial sip or two, it's actually settled down and is fine. Very well balanced, so we'll ignore the dirt on the glass. Yeah, good. I enjoy that. On to the next one. Next up is the Elder Pale Ale, which is, as the name suggests, infused with elderflower. Again, very similar colour, perhaps slightly darker than the previous one. Again, lovely label, old Foxy there. Looking at his elderflower plant. Pearl hops in this at 4.1%. Pale ale made with wheat. This beer will surprise you with its subtle elderflower essence and a moorish character that'll bring you back to it again and again. Exciting. There we go. The last elderflower beer I had was from Purple Moose Brewery, based in Porthmadog, Wales, and I've had it before and it was quite nice, but the last time I had it was quite sickly, so it'll be interesting to see how this one stacks up against it. I mean, it's incredibly floral on the nose, like properly, almost slightly sickly floral. I wasn't expecting that. That is different, yes. Right, okay. So it has obviously an elderflower, floral, slightly soapy flavour, I suppose you could call it, but that, you know, floralness of elderflower. Then there's quite a hefty bitterness to it as well. quite light and refreshing. A nice amount of maltiness in the background, but it's really just very floral and elderflowery. A bit of caramel, perhaps toffee caramel. I mean, although obviously there is a lot of elderflower flavour there, it's not sickly or too unpleasant. I think with elderflower, it's one of those sort of flavours that can over-dominate and overbear on a beer. And although this is very floral, it's not sickly, I wouldn't say. Not necessarily. You can taste the wheat in there as well, actually, on reflection. But yes, it doesn't. It's not too much. It's just nice, you know. It's a pleasant one. A good elderflower ale. Another IPA, but this time in a can. We've got Shed Day IPA, which is very fitting because although the clubhouse is very lovely and very extravagant, it is just an elaborate shed at the end of the day. So there we go. 4.4%. Here we have. It is Eldorado, Equinox, and Mosaic hops. The Brimstage founder Neil Young, not that one, served his first brews to mates in his garden shed. Going down the shed fast became their favourite pastime. This mouth-watering IPA is inspired by those idle hours in the shade of the shed, with the hope that it will inspire many more. So there we go. So this is probably the craftiest of their beers I've tried so far. The rest of the range has been fairly traditional, but as you can see, it's hazy. And as I say, the hops, Eldorado, Equinox, and Mosaic lend themselves to a more modern, crafty beer style, don't they? In fact, I have Eldorado and Equinox in the hop freezer, and I've got Mosaic, so I would like to brew with those two in collaboration. Anyway, there we go. Certainly smells fruity and modern. So let's see. Most of the beers I've had have been traditional so far, so let's see what their crafty versions are like. Very good is the answer. That's very fruity. Big pineapple notes from the Mosaic. Hint of tropical fruit, and then a good sort of, again, I use this word a lot, dank. It's a very good way of describing that sort of bitterness, you know, the resiny sort of bitterness. Certainly light and refreshing as well. I can understand why they called it a session IPA, because although it's very flavoursome in the hop notes, the fruitiness and the bitterness and the sort of tropical notes, it's very, very soft. And I wouldn't say it's light-bodied necessarily, but it's very smooth to drink, very easy to drink. It's not heavy or cloying. But it's very, very tasty. Very tasty. Again, this time of year probably it's a bit lost, but had you been having this in the middle of summer, it would be really, really nice. So yeah, I'm impressed. They can do craft beers just as well as they can do traditional beers, judging by this. Another tinny from Brimstage onto their New Zealand Pale at 4.3%. There's a little New Zealand fern. I'm sure it's not a fern, but it looks a bit like a fern, and I don't know what the actual plant is, but the iconic planty symbol of New Zealand. 4.3%, I'm sorry New Zealanders. We use ingredients from around the world for our beers, but New Zealand hops are a first for us, and this is really special. Bursting with kiwi character, there's crushed white grape flavours from Nelson Sauvignon, and passion fruit aroma from Rakow. We hope you enjoy drinking this as much as we did making it. So chin chin, again, lovely artwork. Okay, so you get some of the sort of grapey, gooseberry notes from the Nelson. The passion fruit is fairly mild. It's there, but it's not very pronounced. Quite a hefty bitterness to it as well, like a vegetary, earthy bitterness. I think it needs a little bit more sweetness to it, this one. We're sort of missing out a bit on those fruity flavours, I think, due to the lack of sweetness. Yeah, just a little bit more, just to emphasise that fruity note to it, and just to balance that bitterness a little bit more. I mean, there are very nice complex flavours going on there. So it's quite sort of creamy floral, grapey, gooseberry, and a slight hint of passion fruit. But feels like there could be a little bit more there. Just a little bit of sweetness just to get that back end a bit more pronounced. But it's an interesting one. So the last beer from Brimstage is a special edition one called Birken Hop. Obviously they're not far from Birkenhead on the Wirral, hence the name. A portion from each sale of this pale ale will go towards the Callister Garden Pavilion and make CIC's community garden. This beer is made with fresh green Prima Donna variety hops grown in the Wirral. 3.9%, 100% voluntary. Birken Hop is a truly green hop beer made with hops grown at Callister Garden, Make Hamilton Square Garden, and by individual hop growers. Seasonally grown by local volunteers. Birken Hop 2023 green hops. Very interesting. Especially Prima Donna, because I thought Prima Donna was like a decorative variety, but I might be mistaken in that. Again, lovely hoppy artwork to it. Smells like I know it sounds bad, but it smells like biltong. No, I love biltong, so that's a great smell. Perhaps a bit of coriander. And a bit of spice. Perhaps that's what the aroma is I'm picking up. Anyway, very light pale beer. Let's dive in. It does smell does smell like biltong. Coriander, I reckon. Tastes like biltong as well. Why do I get biltong? I think it's the coriander sort of flavour I'm getting. That's really nice. It's meaty. it sounds wrong I'm calling it biltong, but it really reminds me of that sort of flavour. I reckon it's something to do with the biltong spice, like the coriander and what other spices go into biltong, I don't really know. You always get biltong, darling, never beef jerky. Biltong for me is the ultimate beer snack, but for some reason I'm getting it in this beer. There's a really nice sort of sweet caramel maltiness in there as well. Quite a bitter finish, but it's a traditional, slightly earthy bitter. That's actually a very tasty beer. Enjoy that quite a lot. So yes, that's the last beer from Brimstage. I say I'm impressed with this one. It's got a really good, like the aroma. Even after I stop drinking, I can taste the aroma, feel the aroma, you know, within me. It's good. I've had quite a bit tonight because I wanted to get this video finished, as February is rapidly approaching the end of its period of running. Even though we're an extra day this year because leap year, apparently. What do I mean apparently? It is a leap year. So yes, Brimstage Brewery, my final thoughts. The word that popped to mind about Brimstage is solid. They are a very solid brewery. None of the beers were exceptional, I don't think. They're all very enjoyable and solid. Yeah, solid beers. The traditional beers, especially the Trapper's Hat, that one, that what I think was the best beer I had from them, the blonde. Really refreshing, lots of lovely citrus notes to it, very tasty. Their bitter Scarecrow, I think, was very well rounded as well. They're a brewery which seems to have got the balance spot on. None of the beers were too bitter or too sweet, at least not some of the earlier ones. Some of the tins were perhaps a little bit bitter, but the bottled beers were fairly spot on. And so this final beer, this Birkenhop, is a lovely beverage. So yes, Brimstage Brewery, as I said, it was just pot luck that I found them. I googled UK breweries, scrolled through a couple, and the artwork just popped out to me, and I really like this sort of line ink drawing, whatever you want to call it. I thought it was very nice, which is why I bought the mix box from them. Say £39, including postage, I think, for the 12 beers. One duplicate because they only had 11 different beers on. And yes, I'm very impressed. It's the sort of beer which would sell well in local pubs, and I'm sure on the Wirral that hopefully they are in a few local pubs, because they certainly deserve to be. But yes, that is February's Mixed Box Monthly at an end. Who am I going for next month? It's a toss-up between Yonder and Wild Child, as both had offers on recently. Although the Yonder offer was, I think, £50 for 12 cans, which is expensive, but for their style of beers, the sort of specialised sours is probably more understandable. However, they offered a 10% discount on this £50 box of beers, but as soon as you apply the discount, they then charge you for post and packaging. So you get £5 off, and then they ask you for £4.99 postage, which you didn't get if you didn't apply the discount. So whether that's an error in their system, or if this 10% discount code is actually only going to save me 1 pence, I'm not sure. So I messaged them on Facebook saying, is this right? But yes, there we go. Final thoughts: Brimstage, very solid, pretty well balanced in the wholesome, and yes, for more traditional style ales, can't go wrong with them. And I love their artwork as well. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you again next month.